कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन जमुनातीरावनचारी जमुनतीरावनचारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा शिल प्रभुपादा निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल गौर हरि बोल ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, Texts 32 and 33. So 32 is on the board. Shronyor adhyastaya kancha कंचन्या बहुरत्नया हारेण च महार्हेण रुचकेन च भूषितम् श्रोण्योरधस्ताय कंचन्या बहुरत्नया हारेण च महार्हेण रुचकेन च भूषितम्. Please try. Anybody? So, Sonadastaya kancha kancha Sonadastaya kancha kanchanya bahuratna What to what? Shronyo on the hips. Adhyastaya worn. Kancha with a girdle. Kanchanya made of gold. Bahuratnaya decorated with numerous jewels. Harena with a pearl necklace. Cha and Mahar Arhena precious. Ruchakena with auspicious substances. Cha and Bhushitam adorned. Please repeat. About her hips she wore a girdle of gold set with numerous jewels, and she was further adorned with a precious pearl necklace and auspicious substances. Purport: auspicious substances include saffron, kumkuma, and sandalwood pulp. Before taking a bath, there are other auspicious substances such as turmeric mixed with mustard seed oil, which are smeared all over the body. All kinds of auspicious substances were used to bathe Devahuti from top to toe. I'll just read the purport and a translation of text 33. Her countenance shone with beautiful teeth and charming eyebrows. Her eyes, distinguished by lovely moist corners, defeated the beauty of lotus buds. Her face was surrounded by dark curling tresses. Purport: according to Vedic culture, white teeth are very much appreciated. Devahuti's white teeth increased the beauty of her face and made it look like a lotus flower. When a face looks very attractive, the eyes are generally compared to lotus petals and the face to a lotus flower. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakshurunmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Pastatvideshata Vansha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhuvaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna. Yeah, this is not a good verse for a brahmachari, to be honest. I just was reading the whole chapter, so we'll discuss something about that, Devahuti, how she performed austerities, in what mood she was performing austerities, and for what purpose. Just a few verses before, I think when Maharaj was giving class, it was describing about Bindu Sarova. So Bindu Sarova is a place. This place is still there in India. Actually, in India, there's two Bindu Sarovas which are quite famous. One is in Bhubaneswar, and this one that they're in this chapter, what Bhagavatam describes, this is actually in Gujarat. So, yeah, of course, it's described before in the previous chapters about this Bindu Sarova. From Ahmedabad, it's like 100 kilometers or so. It's still there. It's quite a famous place. How Garda Muni, out of his sincere prayer to Lord Vishnu appeared before him, and because of his sincerity of purpose, because he wanted to enter the Grihastha ashram, but he wanted, such a child. Lord Vishnu was so overwhelmed that he started crying, and from those tears, Bindu Sarova appeared. The other Bindu Sarova is in Bhubaneswar. I think that's more famous amongst the devotees. After Lord Shiva married Parvati, Lord Shiva found it a bit too crowded in Kashi, so he decided to move to Bhubaneswar. So Bhubaneswar is also an eternal residence of Lord Shiva. So some demons came and they were like, they were giving Parvati a hard time. So anyway, Lord Shiva, Parvati killed those two demons, and after killing them, she was very tired. So she was thirsty, she wanted something to drink. So Lord Shiva threw his trident, and from the place he threw that, like, water came out. And so that's Bindu Sarova in Bhubaneswar. In 1977, I think some devotees from Orissa, when they came, when Prabhupada was sick in Vrindavan, they came and gave Prabhupada that water. Because it's explained that water is supposed to relieve anybody from any digestive problems or stomach problems like that. So Prabhupada was suffering from digestive problems that time. So I think a few devotees brought that, and Prabhupada appreciated that. That's about Bindu Sarova. So anyway, we just discussed something about how Devahuti, although she was a princess of such a high order, how she gave up her bodily conception, her personal comforts, for a higher purpose, for austerity, to please Krishna, to please God ultimately. So it's described, you've already read that in the last few slokas, how she completely neglected her body for that. So when I was remembering that, the story of Krishna and Sudama, that came to my mind, so I just want to share about that. Of course, all of you know the story of Sudama, how he was very poor. In the poverty-stricken condition, his wife sent him to Dwarka to meet Krishna, to get something, to manage the family. So anyway, after Sudama entered the palace of Krishna, you can read this in Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, how Krishna is remembering his childhood pastimes with Sudama when they were in Gurukul. That Gurukul is still there in Ujjain. Under the guidance of Sandipani Muni, Krishna and Sudama and others also spent their days, many months in Gurukul together, serving their spiritual master. and getting prepared for life, learning learning everything that they need to learn for their existence. So one day, this is a very famous story, of course all of you know this, how the wife of the spiritual master, the wife of Sandipani Muni, sent Krishna and Sudama to bring some firewood. After Krishna and Sudama set off to the forest to bring the firewood, of course, this is Krishna's Leela, there was a big storm. And the Acharyas described there, it was winter season. So usually in the winter season, there's not, hailstorms and like those storms don't occur. But so there was a massive storm that occurred and it was really raining and it was really cold. So they kind of got lost on the way. They couldn't find they got the wood, but couldn't come back. So in that condition, they could just stay together and comfort each other and wait till the storm subsided before returning to the ashram of Sandipani Muni. But in the night, Sandipani Muni understood. Krishna and Sudama aren't there. So he was shouting, Krishna, Sudama, where are you? But they weren't there. So, of course, the spiritual master is very merciful, how he felt for his dear disciples. So in the morning, just after sunrise, along with his other disciples, they went on a search hunt to find Krishna and Sudama. So eventually they found them, and Sandipani Muni was very much overwhelmed at the devotion of Krishna and Sudama. Just for some firewood, they had to endure so much, because they were small boys. They weren't very big. And that passage we just want to discuss today. So Krishna is remembering what his spiritual master said to him, to them. Krishna is just mentioning to Sudama there. Naham ijya prajatibhyam tapasyo pasyamenava tusye sarvabhutatma guru shusha sayayata. After discussing this wonderful story, their pastime together, Krishna just mentioned this sloka. Naham ijja prajatibhyam. If one really wants to please me, there's only one way. Naham ijja prajatibhyam. We may be worshipping the deity here, but Krishna says that doesn't necessarily please me. Tapasyo pasyamenava. Some people may do great austerities, but that too does not please me. Tusya sarvabhutatma guru shusha sayayata. One may perform their prescribed duties according to varna or ashram, but that too does not please me as much as how one serves the spiritual masters, gives pleasure to them. Then Krishna is just remembering what Sandipani Muni is telling them. After Sandipani Muni reached to the forest, he is like exclaiming this, Aho he putraka yuyam asmat artyati dukkita atma vai praninam prashtas tamana dritamatpara. Aho he putraka yuyam, my dear children. So the spiritual master considers, the sons and daughters. Many times Prabhupada say, my dear sons and daughters. So spiritual Sandipani Muni is saying, my dear sons, Aho he putraka yoyam asmat arti ati dukkita. For me alone, exclusively for me, you are taking so much suffering. Atma vai praninam prashtas tamana dritamatpara. Atma, the word Atma in Sanskrit has a few meanings. Prabhupada described like Atma means soul. In this case, Atma means body. So for my pleasure, you forsake your bodily pleasure. And in this world, for a conditioned soul, it's very difficult to give this one thing up. And that's what Krishna and Sudama are teaching us. In relation, we're talking today about Devahuti, how she completely neglected her bodily comfort for a higher purpose, to please Krishna ultimately. And as we're discussing today about Sudama and Krishna, just by that one thing, just neglecting their bodily pleasure, and of course, Prabhupada explained more, bodily pleasure, material existence means eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So these four things, how Krishna and Balaram Krishna and Sudama completely gave this up for the pleasure of Sandipani Muni, the spiritual master. Etadeva hi sadsishya kartavam guru niskritam yad vai vishuddha bhavena sarva arthartmarpanam guru. Sandipani Muni is then explaining the duty of a student, disciple, how their mood should be in relation to the spiritual masters. Etareva hi satsishya kartavam guru niskritam. This is the way to pay back the debt to the spiritual master. Prabhupada spoke a lot about this. In Krishna book, in this, I think this chapter, Prabhupada spoke about this in his lectures also. Ultimately, Prabhupada said there's no way to pay back the debt of the spiritual master. What the spiritual master gives to the disciple, there's no way to pay back. But of course, Sandipani Muni is teaching us, at least we should start somewhere. Etadeva hi satsishya kartavam guru niskritam yad vai vishuddha bhavena. Vishuddha bhav. Shuddha means pure, vishuddha. Adding to that, with a pure heart, with pure motive, how we should serve the spiritual masters in this way, sarva arthartmanam guru. Completely dedicating our wealth, sarva artha, and our physical, our body, and ultimately our whole soul, how it should be dedicated to the spiritual masters. This is the way Sandipani Muni is saying how we can try to get rid of the debt of the spirit to the Guru. I just remember this in relation to Devahuti, how she didn't say anything, just with a pure mood, pure motive, just serving. And I was reading yesterday some letters by Prabhupada, how Prabhupada is emphasizing this service attitude. Because, different we all have many different services in this ISKCON institution, of course on this farm for all of you. Wherever we may be situated, our service is our life. But how we perform those services, in what mood, that makes a big difference. Are we doing things, because it's very easy to get in the mechanical boat. Okay, I have to come to Mangalati here, I have to chant my japa, I have to do everything. And it's very easy, it's the easiest thing to get in the comfort zone. I took a few screenshots of those letters. How Prabhupada is describing how we should increase our attitude of service. This is a letter in 1968, Prabhupada's writing. Yes, by keeping engaged in Krishna consciousness activities, we can keep out of Maya's clutches. And there are so many nice engagements, as you have stated. By your sincerity and service attitude, you are making good progress. By your letter, it is shown. And then, another one is... I thank you very much for your letter of November 14th, 1968, and I have noted the contents with great satisfaction. It is all very much encouraging to me. Your humble attitude of service is noteworthy, and this will help you more and more in advancing your Krishna consciousness. There's many letters you can read for yourself. How Prabhupada is emphasizing the mood, how we should be sincere, serious, simple in our service attitude, because it really makes a big difference. All of you know better than me. So as here, it was mentioned previously, how Devahuti, just with a simple heart, completely neglecting herself, she was completely dedicated to her husband for, ultimately to please Krishna, the Supreme Lord. So just something I'd like to share there. We could meditate on those things. And how Devahuti was very patient, how she underwent a lot. So, yeah, that quality of tolerance, forbearance. I was meditating on that, and then I remembered one story. I'd like to share that story. Actually, Gaur Govinda Maharaj mentioned this story, and when I heard this story, really it kind of changed my life, to be honest. I thought to share with all of you in case it could be beneficial for anyone. This is the story of a disciple and how he kind of got fried in his ashram. So he was a brahmachari, and he was cleaning the ashram, cooking, doing all sorts of service in the ashram. But many years passed, and he thought, I'm not making any advancement. I'm just wasting my time here. I'm cleaning. I could be cleaning at my house. I could get married happily and start cleaning at my house and get a job. And I'm doing the same things there I could do in the household. So he just decided on his own, in his mind, today I'll just pay obeisances to my guru, and I'll leave the ashram without saying anything. So every day he used to go to the river and get a pot of water. So he went to his guru, paid obeisances, and he got the pot, and he just, on the plea of getting the water, his daily service, he thought, I'll take this pot and run away from the ashram. So he went to his guru with his plan and paid obeisances, and he got his pot, the mud pot, earthen pot, and then he just took the pot and went on his way, and already fixed in his mind, this is my last day in the ashram. I'll just go to the river and then run away from there. So when he went to the river, he did that. He got his pot, he filled up the water, and he just put the pot there, offered his respects, and just turned around and already planned to leave. Just as he was going, he heard a sound. Where are you going? So he turned around and there was nobody there. So he thought, okay, maybe I'm hallucinating or what. So he continued a few more steps. Again, the sound came, I'm talking to you, where are you going? Then there was no one there. So he got freaked out. Then again, a few more steps, and then he turned around, and then the same noise came. I'm talking to you, come back here. So then he understood the mud pot's talking to him. So anyway, the mud pot started talking to him, and then he started questioning him. Why are you leaving your ashram? Then he just started expressing his heart to him, the mud pot, sorry. He said, I'm working so hard here. My guru doesn't appreciate me. Nobody's appreciating me. I'm just cooking, cleaning, just doing all these menial services. I could just do the same thing in my house, in comfortable life over there. And the mud pot just was listening, and then the mud pot decided to tell his life story to that disciple, that student. So the mud pot asked that student, do you know who I am? He said, yeah, you're a mud pot. But he said, do you know how I became a mud pot? So then he started telling his story, not his story, the mud pot told their story. So before I became a mud pot, I was earth, I was mud. And the potter, he came with his big spade, sharp spade, and dug at me in the mud. After that, digging, they mixed me with water. They were kneading me. It was a painful process. Then they separated me, sieved me, whatever they do. And sometimes, and then they dried me in the sun. That takes a few days, so they dried me. Sometimes some cracks occur at that stage. They again threw me into the mud. Again became mud again. After many, many times like this, after drying, some were perfect, and then they, like semi-solid. It's not complete hard. It's not complete soft also. Then the potter started giving me the shape in the wheel. Again, after that, they put me in the sun for many days. After many, many days like this, I am a mud pot today. And by all that endurance, all that forbearance, by the Lord's mercy, I am engaged in Guru and Krishna's service by carrying this water for them. What are you tolerating? The mud pot's telling the student. So the disciple was like, even he was freaking out. How is this possible? This mud pot's telling me this big story. And this is exactly what I wanted to hear today. So he changed his mind. He took the mud pot, the water pot, and went back to the ashram. And his guru was there. And this guru was just smiling on his own. So he went back and Gurudev, I heard a really far out story today. Who told you that story? He said, a mud pot told me this story, Gurudev. Oh, the mud pot told you. Now you're listening to through a mud pot. Actually, the guru was speaking through the mud pot. The guru knew that my disciple won't listen to me. So through the mud pot, he arranged this to get this information. We're talking in regard to tolerance. How one should be tolerant in devotional service. This tolerance really attracts the mercy of the Lord very quickly. In many quotes by Prabhupada, and of course, well, in Krishna book, Prabhupada very famously said, and that's, one's greatness is known how one can tolerate, provoking situations. From the start, Mahaprabhu was emphasizing this humility and tolerance. These two qualities, it's really the foundation of a Vaishnava. And how devotees, we should try to cultivate this through our service attitude. Class finishes at 8:30. Okay. So I just wanted to share those two things. I didn't know what to speak about this purport here. I don't really know much about that. So forgive. I think yesterday Ikshaku was talking about the psychophysical nature of man and woman. Maybe he's better at that than some of the Kriya devotees. Anyway, so I just wanted to discuss a few points about this, how our mood should be in relation to our service. Then there's many places in the songs of the Vaishnava Acharyas how they emphasize this more. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, Nijera poshana kabuna chintibo rahibo bhavira bare Bhakti vinoda tomara palaka bolio varana kore. This is a very wonderful stanza. I think it's in the song Atmani Vedana tu avada kore. Nijera poshana kabuna chintibo rahibo bhavira bare. Being always in ecstatic emotion, being always enlivened by your devotional service, I never even think of my own personal maintenance. Poshan means maintenance. Nijera poshana kabuna chintibo. I never think about that. Rahibo bhavir, because I'm so overwhelmed by spiritual happiness. We all must have some small experience. When one's so happy in service, naturally they forget. They're eating, they're sleeping, when I'm going to take bath, when I'm going to blah, 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 like that. Bhakti vinoda tomara palako, bolio varana kore. When there's a marriage ceremony, there's something called Bharanamala. Those who are Kriyastas, they must know. The husband puts a mala to a flower garland to the wife, and vice versa. Yeah? It's called a Bharanamala. So, Bhakti vinoda tomara palaka bolia bharana kore. Here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, so the significance of that Bharanamala means there's one mantra they chant. How do I know this? You'll be surprised. There's one mantra they chant while giving this mala to their partner, that I offer this mala to you, so we are connected now for this life. No, life after life. We are connected. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, I've completely given myself to you. Muliya Bharana Kore. Now, my Lord, you take care of me. You take care of me now. This is surrender. How one should dedicate themselves to the Lord, to the spiritual master. Sorry, I didn't have much to speak to. I just meditated on those things or sharing. I'll just go back to the Krishna and Sudama story. The mood of dedication, the mood of service to the spiritual master. Krishna and Sudama gave an ideal example in this pastime. How a disciple, how they should have this mood of serving in regards, in their service in relation to the spiritual master. When I'm talking about serving the spiritual master, I'm not talking about only, physical Vapu Seva. Srila Prabhupada emphasized Vani Seva as more important. And ultimately, I spoke this last year when I was here, how whatever service we're doing, ultimately that is Guru Seva. Because we approach the Supreme Lord through the spiritual master, through the Parampara. I mentioned this again last year. For a conditioned soul to directly serve Krishna is not possible. It's impossible task. If you want proof from the Shastra, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, when in Sanatan Shiksha, when Mahaprabhu was instructing Sanatan Goswami, he made it very clear. Maya mukta jeev Krishna nahis swatagyan. Jeevera kripaya Krishna koila ved puran. Maya mukta jeev, for a conditioned soul who is drowning in Maya. Maya mukta jeev swata nahi Krishna again. That swata means automatic, that natural propensity to become Krishna conscious, that can never arise. It's not possible. Jivera kripaya koila Krishna ved puran. For this purpose, Krishna has given Shastra. Sadhu Shastra Atma Rupe Apana ke janan, Krishna mor Prabhu trata jiver hoy gyan. Krishna gave the Shastra. Sadhu Shastra Krishna jadi. Krishna mukha hoy. Krishna has given the spiritual, these teachings, the books, and he sent his dear devotees, the sadhus, to revive that Krishna consciousness. I'll give you a small example so it's a bit easier. Before Srila Prabhupada introduced this Krishna consciousness movement, Bhagavad Gita was there, the deities were there, holy places were there, but nobody understood anything. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra was there. In India, everyone knows this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, especially in Bengal, everyone knows this. In Orissa, everyone knows this. But the importance of that, the importance of deities, the importance of Shastra, the importance of the holy Dham. Vrindavan was there, but nobody knew anything. Like what is Mayapur, what is Vrindavan, nobody had any idea about that. But such a personality, pure devotees of Krishna, they can manifest that thing before us. So that's why we were talking on this point, just briefly. How pure devotees, how our acharyas manifest these teachings before us. So that's why I was, in regards to talking about Guru Seva, how any service we're doing, that mind of a disciple should always be that I'm doing this for the pleasure of my spiritual masters. By that mindset, by their mercy, Parampara's mercy, things will become a lot easier. Things will become very much revealed to us. I don't want to be a big mother. I just end here. If there's any corrections or comments by the seniors here. Or anyone else want to ask anything?
I was listening to a class the other day, and we understand ISKCON's, the principle is unity in diversity, yeah? So as individuals, we're all diverse, we're all different. And if we concentrate on that difference, things start to come apart. But the way that we can develop the unity is like you were saying, with the service attitude. The more we have that attitude to do some service, then we have unity together. And I was listening to Agamuni, he prints those things every day. He said, there is the Radharani principle. That the Radharani principle is like, oh, let me do something nice to help this devotee. Jai.
It's very nice. But unity, that's a very nice point Prabhuji is mentioning. When there's a common interest, it's very easy to stay united. Maharaj always gives this example to us. Like in a pond, if you throw a stone, then there's like a concentric point. There are many ripples come, and they're in union. They don't disturb each other. But if you start throwing like 50 stones in a pond, there's so many, there's all clashes between the ripples. So when we really have that point, okay, I just want to please Krishna, please Prabhupada, please our spiritual masters. When that center point is there, things come very easy. Otherwise, even I've seen in like a community of 2-3 devotees, and they're all fighting because they have maybe some personal motive is there. But here's very nice at the farm, my small observation. Everyone's very happy serving together. Of course, small differences will be there, that's always there. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Anybody, anything else? Yes,
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. You were mentioning how Devahuti, she neglected her personal comforts to serve her husband as a guru. So we heard in the Lilamrita it talks about there was one devotee and she was very cold, and Prabhupada visited that temple and he says you should buy her a chadar to keep warm. So on one side we have the understanding that our body belongs to Krishna and we shouldn't neglect it. And at the same time, so you explained that we give up our pleasures. So there is that observation that sometimes someone wants to do the same thing as another devotee, but then they're coming from a very, like Devahuti, her body became emaciated because she was accustomed as a princess. So to live in the forest, her body naturally got, but then we hear also of sages' wives who live for many, many years in the forest, but their body doesn't get so emaciated.
Okay.
So the principle of that.
So yeah, I should have. Thank you for making that point. Like we're taking the principle here. We're not asking anyone to go in the forest like Devahuti, but so of course they are eternal associates of the Lord. The principle here, and as Srila Prabhupada has explained to us how we should gradually minimize bodily comforts and pleasures. Prabhupada did mention a few times when we make eating, sleeping, mating and defending 0, then we can go back to Godhead. Everyone has a different self-capacity. So what I can do, Prabhu can't, you can't, Mataji can't. It's not, everyone's not the same, and it's not somebody's better or worse. Everyone has a different capacity for themselves, and they know that. For example, in breakfast, somebody could eat 5 pieces of bread, and somebody could eat 2. Everyone knows how much they can digest, how much they can do. So similarly, in that sense, we're not asking anyone to torture the body. Torturing the body is something different, Mataji. In like Bhagavad Gita, that's under the austerity in the mode of ignorance. The acharyas never encourage that thing. Yeah, this is a fine line where one has to know themselves, pray to Krishna, how much one can increase, decrease for Krishna's pleasure. And one thing, my small experience, and all of the seniors must have much more, when one really is doing things for the pleasure of Krishna, Krishna provides everything for them. Krishna will never let his devotees suffer. So when really one wants to serve sincerely, Krishna will provide everything for them. But according like that, Mataji was cold. If somebody's cold, it's ideal to wear a jacket or something like that, Mataji. The balance should be there. Yukta Vairagya, do everything balanced. Is that okay, Mataji? Okay. Anybody else? Yes, we'll finish. Okay. जय श्री राधा गोविंद हरि जी की जय, कृष्ण बलराम की जय।